So before we start actually making pieces for our building, I want to show you a little bit about how grids, origins, and snapping all work inside of this program, which are really essential and really great tools to make your modeling go a lot faster. So with a simple cube in here, I can see that there is this little, for me, it's a green dot. Again, if you want to change some of your colors up, I like this because I feel it's better for demoing. But in our themes, there are color options inside of the 3D viewport. And I like to set my active object to this like green color. I think traditionally the default is a little bit orangier. I don't like that as much, but you can always restore it if you want to do load factory preferences. I like mine green because it's easier to see on these screens. So this little dot at the center is my origin, which means when I rotate and I scale and I move it, it all does so from this point because it's saying this point is at 0, 0, 0. So if we see here, it's saying this point is 1.9 meters away from the center. And if this little dot moves, which is, there's a lot of ways to do it. One of those, I can go into tab and I can move it. You can see the little dot stays wherever it is. So now, even though it looks like the cube is over here, it still says it's at 0, 0, 0, meaning that if I scale it, it scales from this point still. And if I rotate it, it rotates from this point still. This can be really useful for us to decide where we want the point to be. A traditional way of actually getting these points into place is to use the cursor and all that stuff, but fairly recently they've made a much easier system. If we go up to options, there is this effect only origins here, and what this means, it doesn't look like it does anything, it just creates this little grid. But now if I hit G, it doesn't move anything but the origin, meaning I can move the origin wherever I want it. And I can add this together with some of the snapping to actually put it into points that I want. Let's turn this off again real quick. It actually has a hotkey. If you hover over it, you can see it's control, and the period key just turns on and off this origin, which is nice to have that function on here. But I want to show you some of the snapping up here. We have several options for snapping modes, including increment, which is like a series of stages. Usually I turn increment to grid snap, which means it's going to snap to these grid lines here. Really useful for modular modeling, which we'll be doing in a second. I can also snap to vertices, I can snap to edges, faces, or even whole things like volumes, and there's so many different settings within these. I almost always use either increment, vertex, or face snap most commonly. I don't really use these other ones. And I'll show you some of the circumstances in which they're useful. So for instance, I got this origin point right now, and say I want to put it just so on the corner here, but it's hard to get it into space. I could use my orthographic views, which is traditionally how you do something like this, and just get it really on from both views, but you're not sure, and it's still not quite there. But if I use that in conjunction with vertex snapping, and I hit G to move it, and now I can hold the control key down, it'll snap to whatever vert is closest under my cursor. This is also, as I said, where like a face snap goes. If I turn on face, then it just does it, but it'll snap to any position as long as it's on this face. You can turn this on with the little magnet symbol here. I usually like to leave it off and use Control as my hotkey. There's also a Control-Shift-Tab to bring this whole menu up if you don't want to go hovering up there, but most of the time you'll probably just go up there a lot. I change these a lot, so I use it there. So this is nice because now that I've moved this pivot, Control period to turn off that active thing, it now understands its location has changed. So if I hit minus, it put it back to 0, 0, 0. And now when I scale it and I rotate it, it's doing it all from that location. This is really good because if I want to start making, as we're going to in a second, things like walls, so RX90, let's rotate it up. I'm going to move it GZ1 to get it exactly one up. And then I maybe want to put its pivot down here in the corner. So Control period to get this going, G, and then hold down Control and snap into the corner. What's cool about this is if I go back to my increment or my grid snap, like here, I can duplicate this and then hold G, and it's going to snap it into place so that I can create duplicates of things and build a wall out of pieces and parts. And it will like snap it to predictably different grid positions, or I could do it vertex snap and it does the same thing. It's just going to snap to whatever vert it's closest to. To do this properly, you see it's not quite working. It's because what it's trying to do with this snap right now is closest point, and we want to set it to median. Median means the origin. It's another word in there. So this means it's going to snap now to whatever that origin point is. So it's just another way of working, but also this increment and grid version works pretty well. So this is how you do it. This is how you move an origin, and origins are really important for positioning. Next video, I'll show you how to turn this and start making our first window piece.